If you've been watching foldable phones evolve since the original Galaxy Fold in 2019, you know just how far the technology has come. We've gone from bulky, fragile, experimental devices to slim, PREMIUM foldables that can actually replace a traditional flagship phone. Bigger cover screens, stronger hinges, better water resistance, year after year. Samsung and its rivals have checked off almost every major complaint users had at the beginning, but there's still one flaw that every foldable owner knows too. Well, that crease running right down the center of the display. No matter how high-end the phone is, no matter how bright or smooth the screen feels, the moment you open a foldable, your eye goes straight to that line in the middle. It's the one visual reminder that you're not using a regular slab smartphone. And for many people, that crease is still the reason they haven't yet switched to a foldable. Now, according to new leaks and reports out of Korea, Samsung might finally be ready to tackle this problem head-on with the upcoming Galaxy Z Fold 8. And if these reports are accurate, this could be the first mass-market foldable phone that looks and feels like a normal tablet when it's unfolded with no visible crease at all. So what exactly is Samsung planning? How is this new display technology supposed to work? And what does it mean for the future of foldable phones, including Apple's rumored folding iPhone? Let's break it down. Samsung Display, the division responsible for making screens not just for Samsung phones, but for plenty of other brands as well, recently took center stage at CES 2026. As usual, they showed off a range of futuristic display prototypes, rollable panels, sliding displays, and of course, new foldable concepts. But one prototype in particular grabbed everyone's attention. A foldable OLED panel with no visible crease. People who saw it in person described it as looking almost indistinguishable from a traditional flat display when opened up. Instead of that familiar valley or line in the middle, the screen looked smooth, uniform, and clean, even when light hit it from different angles. It's exactly the kind of thing foldable fans have been dreaming of for years. According to a new report from ZDNET Korea, this technology isn't just a concept. Samsung is seriously considering bringing this new creaseless panel to its next-generation foldable flagship, the Galaxy Z Fold 8, expected to arrive later this year. If that happens, the Z Fold 8 could become the first widely available foldable phone to truly solve the crease problem, at least from a visual standpoint. So how does Samsung plan to do this? The secret isn't just in the old panel itself, but in how that panel is put together. In a typical foldable display, you've got multiple layers, the old emitting layer, protective films, touch sensors, and a top layer that simulates glass, all bonded together. One of the key ingredients that holds these layers in place is something called OCA, optical clear adhesive. It's basically the transparent glue that keeps your display stack unified while allowing light to pass through clearly. According to ZDNET Korea, Samsung Display's new panel changes the way this adhesive is used and how the layers of the screen are structured. By tweaking the OCA and how it bonds the internal layers, Samsung can make the entire stack less stiff and more flexible, right as that matter. In a traditional foldable, when you bend the screen, the rigid structure of the layers forces material to compress and stretch around the hinge area, which creates that permanent wrinkle or crease you see, and sometimes feel, in the middle. Over time, that crease can become more noticeable as the phone is opened and closed thousands of times. With this new approach, Samsung's updated OCA application and revised layering allow the panel to flex more naturally. The material doesn't fight against the bend as much, so instead of forming a sharp groove, the fold area can curve more gently, distributing the stress more evenly. The result is fewer wrinkles and a much less noticeable fold line. In simple terms, instead of trying to make the foldable screen behave like rigid glass that has to crease, Samsung is making it behave more like a highly flexible sheet that bends smoothly without forming a permanent line. If all goes according to plan, the unfolded display on the Galaxy Z Fold 8 could look a lot closer to a normal tablet screen. Flat, Clean and visually seamless. Of course, there's a catch. Advanced display tech like this doesn't come cheap. The same report from ZDNET. Korea makes it clear that while Samsung is leaning toward using this new creaseless panel in the Galaxy Z Fold 8, the company hasn't fully locked in that decision. Yet, the big concern: cost. New manufacturing processes, new materials, and stricter quality control always mean higher production costs. On top of that, there are already expectations of price pressure from another direction: RAM shortages. Component shortages can push up the cost of parts like memory, which then squeezes the overall budget for the device. So Samsung is essentially facing a tough choice. Do they absorb the additional display costs, potentially shrinking their profit margins? Do they pass the cost on to consumers and risk launching an even more expensive foldable phone? Or do they play it safe, stick to a more mature panel technology, and delay the creaseless dream for another year? According to the leaks, Samsung is expected to make its final decision around the end of Q1, just before mass production of this year's foldables begins. That timing is important because once panel orders are locked, there's no turning back. If the Galaxy Z Fold 8 ships without the new panel, it's likely not because the tech isn't ready, but because the overall bill of materials, including things like RAM, has already pushed the device's cost too high. There's another angle to this story that makes it even more interesting. Apple. For years, rumors have suggested that Apple has been quietly experimenting with foldable iPhone and iPad concepts behind closed doors. More recent leaks point toward Apple finally preparing some kind of foldable product for the not-too-distant future. And naturally, many people have wondered whether Samsung's new creaseless panel might be designed with Apple in mind. Samsung Display is, after all, one of Apple's key display suppliers for current iPhones. But according to ZDNET Korea, this specific creaseless panel being shown off at CES is not the one destined for Apple. The outlet quotes an official who explicitly states that anything being developed for a future folding iPhone would not be allowed to appear in such a public demo. That makes sense. Apple is famously secretive about its hardware roadmaps, and any component clearly tied to an upcoming iPhone is usually kept under tight wraps. If there is a specialized panel being co-developed for Apple, it's almost certainly locked away far from trade show floors. So, for now at least, this new Samsung display tech appears to be primarily aimed at Samsung's own foldables, like the rumored Galaxy Z Fold 8 and possibly future Z Flip models. If Samsung does go ahead and launch the Galaxy Z Fold 8 with a nearly crease-free display, it could be a turning point for the entire foldable market. First, from a user experience perspective, it tackles one of the biggest psychological barriers for buyers. Many tech enthusiasts who love the idea of a tablet in their pocket are still hesitant because they don't like the look or feel of the crease. Remove that, and suddenly a foldable looks less like a compromise and more like an upgrade. Second, it raises the bar for every other brand. Companies like Google, OnePlus, Oppo, and Huawei have all made progress in reducing their creases, but none have truly eliminated them. If Samsung can deliver a Fold 8 that looks almost perfectly flat when open, competitors will have to respond quickly or risk looking outdated. Finally, it sets the stage for a more direct showdown with Apple when, not if, Apple enters the foldable space. Users will expect a product that feels refined, premium, and as compromise-free as possible. If Samsung can already claim no visible crease by the time a folding iPhone arrives, it gives the Galaxy Z Fold lineup a massive talking point and a mature, battle-tested generation or two of creaseless hardware ahead of Apple's first attempt. Of course, all of this still hinges on decisions being made inside Samsung right now. How aggressive they want to be with cutting-edge display tech. How much they think consumers are willing to pay for a truly seamless foldable experience. And how quickly they believe rivals, including Apple, are moving. For now, what we can say is this: foldable phones have already come a long way since 2019, But the next big leap might not be about more cameras, faster chips, or slightly thinner bodies. It might be about finally making that fold in the screen disappear to the human eye.